All right, so we're diving into this whole YouTube demonetization thing today, where YouTube basically cuts off a creator's ad revenue. We had a listener write in about this YouTuber, Ritz Runner, and, well, it's definitely got people talking.
Yeah, it definitely brings up some interesting questions about platform policies, how they're enforced, all of that.
Totally. So this Ritz Runner, he's making videos, pretty standard YouTube stuff, trying to grow an audience, maybe make a little cash on the side. And according to him, YouTube is holding on to his final payout after they demonetized his account, which, on the surface doesn't sound that crazy, but
there's a catch.
There's a catch. The amount they supposedly owe him is $78.
$78. Okay, so less than $100.
Exactly. I mean, you could barely buy a decent. I don't even know what you could buy for that these days.
Not much in the creator space, that's for sure. So I'm guessing this is less about the money itself and more about what this situation might be a sign of.
You got it. Think about it. If someone's below that payout threshold, usually around $100, and they get demonetized, they're in a tough spot.
Yeah, they're stuck.
Yep.
Can't earn more to hit that payout if they're demonetized. And Ritz is claiming they can't even get what they already earned. Apparently, he appealed, even changed his content based on YouTube's feedback, but nothing.
And get this, he said YouTube told him they actually refund the money to advertisers when this happens.
Really? Is that even a thing? I've honestly never heard of that. You'd think once a creator earns ad revenue, it's theirs unless they, broke some major rules.
Yeah. Which brings us to this whole reuse content issue that Ritz ran into. What does that even mean in the context of YouTube? Because it seems like that's what got him in trouble.
Right, so reuse content, it's basically YouTube's way of saying they think you're uploading stuff you don't totally own the rights to, or sometimes it's about content being too similar to your old stuff, like you're not adding anything new. Honestly, it can be a bit of a gray area. Seems like that's what happened with Ritz, at least according to him.
And because of that, YouTube's saying, sorry, no money for you. Yeah. Even though they already ran ads on his videos, those advertisers already paid up.
Yeah, that's what's being alleged, at least. It does make you wonder about their whole process there.
And if it's happening to other creators.
Right, that's the bigger question. Is this $78 just the tip of the iceberg?
It's kind of wild, right? You got Ritz and his $78. It just feels like we're scratching the surface of this whole YouTube creator relationship thing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It really brings to light that power dynamic, doesn't it?
Because, let's face it, YouTube, they're the big dog.
For sure.
And the creators. Even the ones with millions of subscribers, they're kind of at YouTube's mercy,
Yeah.
Whatever policies YouTube decides to cook up, that's the law.
It is. And it's interesting, right? Like, even if you say, okay, these content reuse policies, they make sense. It's how they're enforced. And it's the lack of transparency around, like, what happens to the money if you get demonetized. Those are the real issues.
Yeah, and like most people making videos, they're not lawyers.
Right.
They don't want to spend hours trying to decode those terms of service,
Exactly. Creators just want to create. They want to connect with their audience. And yeah, hopefully maybe make a living from it. And for a lot of these people, that income, even if it's a couple $100, it matters.
Which brings us back to the $78. It's not really about the money, is it?
No.
It's about the principle.
It really is. It's about whether YouTube's being fair, being transparent, especially when a creator says, hold on, I don't think that's right.
And it makes you wonder, like, what about all the other creators out there? If this happened to Ritz, could it be happening to a ton of other people?
Exactly. And those small amounts, they could add up to some serious cash.
That's why this whole class action thing that Ritz is talking about, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because if enough people came forward, that could actually force YouTube to make some changes.
It could. At the very least, it would shine a light on all of this. Force YouTube to be a little more upfront about how they handle these situations.
Speaking of being upfront, you mentioned Google AdSense earlier. Remind me, how does that whole thing work again?
Okay.
So Google AdSense, that's basically the system that YouTube and a lot of websites use to make money from ads and then pay the creators.
Right.
So the advertisers, they pay Google to show their ad. Then Google takes a cut and gives a portion of that money to the creator whose video the ad was on.
So they're like the middleman.
Exactly.
Between the people making the ads and the people making the videos.
Exactly. And usually you need to hit a certain amount, like that $100 we talked about, before Google AdSense sends you a payout.
But what happens if you're demonetized before you hit that amount? Like what happened with Ritz? That's the $1 million question, right? Normally you'd think, okay, they still owe you that money. But if what Ritz is claiming is true, if they're refunding these tiny balances to advertisers, well, then you're talking about a whole other can of worms.
And potentially a legal mess for YouTube.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you get into who does that money actually belong to? Does YouTube have the right to just hold on to it? Especially when someone's actively trying to appeal their case.
And how much does this affect creators trusting the platform?
That's a great point. I mean, if you're a creator and you're thinking, wait, they can just pull the rug out from under me at any moment, or what if my money just disappears? That's not exactly building confidence, is it?
So let's say this class action lawsuit, there's one Ritz wants to put together. Let's say that actually happens. What could that mean for YouTube? Like, could it actually change how they do things?
Well, if it's successful, yeah, it could force their hand, make them address these transparency issues we keep bumping into. Like, they might have to be way more upfront about their policies, especially for creators who are demonetized and what happens to, smaller amounts of money.
No more hiding behind the legal jargon in those terms of service, huh?
Potentially, yeah. They might have to actually, explain it in plain English
Yeah.
in a way that makes sense for the average person.
Right, not just for lawyers.
Exactly. And that'd be a huge win for transparency. Not just on YouTube, but, you got to think other platforms are watching this too.
It sets a precedent.
Exactly. And even beyond transparency, like, it could change how these platforms actually operate. Think about it. They could be required to have a fairer system for how they handle creator earnings, how they handle disputes, like maybe even have a whole separate group, totally independent, who can review these cases.
The less of a, well, we're YouTube, so too bad kind of thing.
Exactly. More accountability. And honestly, I think a lot of creators would be happy to see that. It's not about, punishing YouTube or anything. It's about making sure everyone's playing by the same rules.
So for the creators listening to this right now, what can they do besides, hope for the best?
Well, like we were saying, knowledge is power. As much as it might be a pain, get familiar with YouTube's policies. Even better, talk to other creators. See what they're going through. Share your own experiences. There's strength in numbers, especially when you're dealing with these, giant companies.
Banding together, making your voices heard.
Exactly. And document everything. If you're having issues, demonetization, problems with payouts, whatever it is, keep track of everything. Dates, times, conversations. That way, if something like this happens, you've got it all ready to go.
It's like your grandma always said, get it in writing.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to speak up. Share your story. Even if you think, oh, this is nothing, it's just a small thing. Because, look at Ritz. $78. It might seem insignificant on its own, but it's bringing to light this whole other issue.
That's why we do this show, right?
Right.
It starts with one YouTuber story, and bam, we're suddenly talking about the future of making a living online. Fairness, transparency, all of it.
It's a whole thing. And, it makes you think. Don't just take things at face value. Ask questions. Do your own research. Don't be afraid to dig a little deeper.
Love that. Okay, folks, now we want to hear from you. Have you had similar experiences with demonetization or anything like this? What are your thoughts on all of this? Head over to our social media. Let us know what you think, because this conversation is far from over. And who knows, your story could be our next deep dive.